Ryan, I'm going to play a clip for you, and we're gonna deal with this impending reality. Top 5.
When I was talking to the president this morning, it was just before the Oval Office event, he kind of surprised me a little bit because he said, John, I just want to tell you, I'm very serious about this. So you can talk about this. I'm serious about beginning a process to make Venezuela the 51st state.
All right, Ryan, break it down for us dead serious. How many electoral votes is Venezuela going to have in the 28 election? And is it a swing state, a blue state, a red state?
So Venezuela would get as many electoral college votes as Texas. Now, I want to remind you something. Even though we would add 2 U.S. Senate seats, we would not add any House seats to Congress. They would still have 435 House seats. So a lot of red and blue states would all lose congressmen to go to Venezuela. So Venezuela would have 38 congressmen, and they would come from all over the country, including out of red states. So that's a big, big caveat. How do they vote? That's a big question. So Venezuelan diaspora, both in the United States and in Argentina, the 2 places I looked at, were big backers of both President Trump and Javier Milei over in Argentina, the libertarian president of Argentina. They are, though, the diaspora tend to be wealthier than those who live in Venezuela. Venezuela, if it were to become a state, would have 1/10 the GDP per capita of the state of New Hampshire. It would be more than twice as impoverished as American Samoa. It would have an average of $8,900 per year per person in income. So a generous welfare state is going to sound very alluring to those people. They have not had a free election since they voted for a communist. That being said, maybe they learned their lesson. Who knows? However, there is certainly a very pro-communist wing of that country that still exists. So it is not safe to say that they will vote any which way, given that a lot of people who despise communism have already fled the nation.
I was going to say, so the big thing you got to think about with Venezuela is that the diaspora, as you said, that we see in Florida or Argentina,
it's selected for people
selective.
Who
that
can't
is not representative
Venezuela.
of the people that remained. The people that remained are the poor, less well off. You said they may have learned their lesson, but they may not have learned their lesson. And that is the difficult thing to gauge here, is because we haven't had transparency in Venezuela. We have no idea what that electorate is like. We know that there was accusations with Maduro's last election that it was rigged, that his opponent actually won that election and that they rigged the elections in his favor. So maybe they would vote that way. But, I mean, do we have any historical precedent? And here's what I love about Noble Gold is, you know, when people are going to buy precious metals, and we can talk about why they should and why they should consider it as part of their portfolio, and we will. But, you know, here's what I know. You are honest and trustworthy. You have integrity. People love doing business with your company, and you charge, you know, people don't realize this. There's a lot of shysters out there where, like, if you buy this much gold, they mark it up a long way, and then you, as in the audience that thought you were getting an investment vehicle, gold's got to like double in value before you make your money back. That's not what happens at Noble Gold. You guys are like the industry leader as far as fairness on the pricing, and that's how awesome you guys are.
Even under the fair election estimates, Maduro still received 40-something% of the election. So it wasn't like it was 99-1 like the fake election results. Maduro has a sizable level of support, maybe 1 in 3 people living in Venezuela. I don't know about you, but to get 38 new congressmen and have a third be all squad members, that's not a great deal, especially when you're taking congressmen from Alabama, from Ohio, from Pennsylvania, from Texas, and you're sending them over to Venezuela. Not a really big fan of that idea. Plus, also, I mean, we've had a very tough time securing our own border with Mexico that has a river and mountains. Securing the Venezuelan border from the millions who would easily flock through the jungles into that nation to be counted in this election would be pandemonium.
Yeah, and you know, obviously we're being a little cheeky here, but I think another thing to keep in mind, America has annexed formerly independent countries before. We did it with Texas, we did it with Hawaii, but Hawaii had tremendous immigration from the United States. Texas was clearly just founded, settled by Americans who wanted to join the United States throughout that period. We would be annexing a country that
speaks Spanish.
Yeah, speaks Spanish, has a long history of independence. They have an identity as Venezuelans. And so when we're discussing how that would go politically, I don't think they'd be thinking what's best for America because I am now American. They would be thinking, how do I help Venezuela, my country that has perhaps just temporarily attached itself to this country that's decided to be its sugar daddy? And so, for example, in politics, it might just reduce to who's promising us the most money. And I think we all know which party loves to promise people money for doing nothing the most.
It's important to remember it's important to remember Venezuela is poor. The average Venezuelan is poorer than the average Western European after World War II. So what we had to do in World War II to build up Western Europe, we would have to do at a larger scale to build up Venezuela while we are broke and while Americans really are resenting one, foreign policy, adventurism, and two, money not being spent within our own country. So that would probably be very, very dicey. I don't think Donald Trump needs to do this to make it part of his legacy, to have a wonderful legacy.
But what about the oil, Ryan? We could just fund it all with the oil. What say you?
Yeah, allegedly, but the oil would then be owned by private companies. So are we going to increase taxes on oil? Is that what Trump's going to do? I mean, we're just going to increase taxes left and right. We could increase taxes on AI and spend a lot and pay for a lot of things, but we don't do that either. Like, they're not going to want to if Trump has a good friend purchase an oil company in Venezuela, he's not going to push for higher taxes out of Venezuela. It's just not. Like, there's just no way that that's going to happen. So no, it's going to come out of the American tax law. We're going to borrow from China to spend in Venezuela at the lowering purchasing power of the American dollar for people in red states throughout the country. It's not necessary.
But here's my most important question. So we already have one Spanish-speaking, territory in Puerto Rico. How many more Bad Bunnies could we get out of Venezuela? That is really the question that needs to be asked. It's a cultural question. It's a rhetorical one.